Beyond the buzzer, inside the game, this is Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Sports IQ, Larry Smith with you. Glad you're here along for the ride. Wednesday, May 27th, counting down until June. How about that? Hey, happy birthdays today. Heisman Trophy winner Danny Werfel turns 52. Former Mets catcher Todd Hundley, 57. Frank Thomas probably wants to sell you a pill somewhere. He's 58, but he's feeling good because he takes those pills. NFL kicker Nick Lowry turning 70. The legendary Sam Snead, one of the greatest golfers of all time, born on this date back in 1912. A little trivia for you to start the show. Hey, great guest coming up in just a bit here. Todd Rosiak with the Brewers. The NL Central, all 5 teams north of 500. And the Brewers sitting atop the other 4 teams. They're the best of the best right now. So we'll talk with him about the Brewers' hot start, the NL Central, baseball overall. That conversation coming up here in just a few minutes. A couple of headlines for you right now. For the third time in the 9 years of their franchise, the Las Vegas Golden Knights on their way to the Stanley Cup Finals thanks to a 2-1 win over Colorado in Game 4 of the Western Conference Finals. Now, to understand why this is so special, take a look at the other expansion teams in hockey. In 1967, the Oakland Seals joining the NHL. They later became the California Golden Seals. In their first 9 seasons, they made the playoffs only twice and never won a playoff series. 2 teams have been trying expansion thing in Atlanta, the Flames and the Thrashers. The Flames lasting 8 years, made the playoffs 6 times, never advanced past the first round. The Thrashers came about in 1999, stuck around Atlanta for 11 seasons, only made the playoffs once, but never advanced. How about those 2 Florida teams that have had success, the Panthers and the Lightning? Now, the Panthers, in their first 9 years, did make the playoffs 3 times, and in just their 3rd season, made the Cup Finals. The media thrilled to get a chance to go down to Miami to cover some Stanley Cup Finals action. Their opponent that year was Colorado. The Avalanche swept past them 4-0. The Lightning began play in 1993, and their first 9 years, made the playoffs once, never advanced. And in case you want to know, they did win the Cup in their 12th season of existence. The coach that got them that Cup, John Tortorella. And how about the job that Tortorella has done this season with Las Vegas? Since taking over late in the season, Tortorella has led the Golden Knights to a 19-4-1 record, and they're placed now in the Stanley Cup Finals. In case you're wondering, what's the best 25-game mark in NHL history? That belongs to the 1929-1930 Boston Bruins, who won 21 games, lost 3, and tied 1. Pretty cool. NBA now, the Thunder taking a 3-2 lead on the Spurs, courtesy a 127-114 win over San Antonio. You really look at the stat line of one player and know whose team won the game, and it is not the stat line of the current 2-time league MVP, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. This series all about Victor Wembanyama, expected to be his coming out party on the big stage, and in some games he's done just that. In the 2 Spurs wins, Wemby has scored 74 total points, pulled down 32 rebounds. He's been the force they needed him to be. In the 3 Spurs losses, the 7-4 Phenom has scored 67 points, but the biggest stat line, his rebounds. In those 3 games, only 27 boards, 17 coming in Game 2. In the last 2 losses, Games 3 and 5, Wemby just 10 total boards. Through the first 19 minutes of Game 5, he had 2 buckets, 1 rebound. That's not acceptable at a 7'4" Phenom. Okay, time now for today's moment of awe. And, the Baltimore Orioles, not off to the best start this season. 25-30, 10.5 games out of first in the AL East. But it was on this day in 1960 when Baltimore Orioles manager Paul Richards had an idea, creating an oversized catcher's mitt. Now, the big glove was to help his catchers corral the wayward pitches of knuckleballer Hoyt Wilhelm. Baltimore, the year before in 1959, had set a Major League Baseball record with 49 passed balls, 38 of those coming with Wilhelm on the mound. And they had 11 in Wilhelm's last 28 innings before Richards' invention, which did the trick. No passed balls on that day as Wilhelm threw a complete game win. Now, a later rule change limited the size of catcher's mitts, but it was 66 years ago today, the mother of necessity with the Orioles, and that earns our moment of awe.
You're listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
And we talked a moment ago about baseball and the NL Central being highly competitive. And the team right now sitting in first place, Milwaukee Brewers. And joining us now, thrilled to have you on the show, Brewers beat writer from the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, if I can get it right, Todd Rosiak. Todd, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, tell us what's going on right now with Milwaukee. We were saying earlier that the Cubs losing 10 straight in last place, but still above 500. That's just how competitive this division has been.
It's crazy. And, I cover the Brewers, but obviously I have an eye on everything that's going on, or mostly the National League, but in baseball. What a crazy year for the Cubs, huh? 2 10-game winning streaks and now a 10-game losing streak. And this 10-game losing streak, a big portion of that, at the start of that, came at the hands of the Brewers down at Wrigley Field last week. The Brewers came in and, I've been covering the team. This is my 16th year, and I can't remember a time, at least in the last decade, where the Brewers went into Wrigley Field and just punked the Cubs the way they did. But they did. I mean, it was insane. And it started the Brewers on on a roll themselves. Meanwhile, the Cubs have been in this tailspin, and the Brewers now are in first place in the Central again, place that they're very familiar with over the course of the last 3 years, obviously 3-time defending champions. And it's just crazy because they really have no offense to speak of. They really have no name players. I mean, everybody knows Christian Yelich, but, he's been out with an injury for a good portion of the season. Jacob Misiorowski is kind of getting on the national radar screen. Of course, people are figuring out who he is. But otherwise, it's really a group of anonymous players, young players, guys who, reclamation projects. The Brewers front office and coaching staff have done just a magnificent job here in recent years and basically sprinkling that magic dust on everybody and making them play well. I don't know how else to explain it.
You almost sound like that movie Major League that was based on the Cleveland Indians, but shot at the Old County Stadium in Milwaukee for those old heads. But I digress. We get back to today's Brewers in 2026. What is it? That was my next question. What has it been about this Brewers team? As you mentioned, kind of just a group of guys coming together and finding magic and clutch, doing things just at the right time to get W's.
Yeah, I think, to simplify it, maybe oversimplify it a little bit, their pitching has just been outstanding again. And it starts with Jacob Misiorowski, who's been on another planet, as everybody's seen by the numbers he's been putting up this year. But, they've got a guy named Kyle Harrison, who a left-hander, and this goes back to their front office acumen. He came over to the Brewers in a pre-spring training trade in exchange for Caleb Durbin. There were several players involved on both sides, but Kyle Harrison is a guy who is a former top prospect for the Giants, got traded to the Red Sox in the Rafael Devers trade. Never really kind of panned out. It just been spinning his wheels. He comes to Milwaukee. All of a sudden, he's got a better ERA at this point than Jacob Misiorowski. I mean, he'd be an ace for almost any team, and he's almost an afterthought here with the way the Miz is pitching. So you take those two guys at the head of a rotation. And then the Brewers have an entire roster of young guys who they kind of mix and match. They pull up from Class AAA Nashville, shuffle back down. Brandon Woodruff has made some starts. He's on the IL right now, but he'll be ready to go here in the next several weeks again. He gives you a little bit of that veteran experience. Their bullpen has pitched really well again, which has pretty much been expected. So to me, it's been the pitching, and then the offense. They don't hit home runs. It's really kind of weird in today's game with power, swing for the fences. These guys are bunting every game. These guys are sacrifice bunting. They're stealing bases. A typical inning for the Brewers offensively is, hit by pitch, walk, steal a base, double steal, wild pitch scores a run, single scores another run. That's the way these rallies go for these guys. And every once in a while they'll run into one and hit a homer. So, and they play great defense too. So it's just, kind of, I guess I'm going around in circles, but it's just everything is clicking. They do everything well. There's nothing that they don't really do particularly poorly, aside from hitting for power. And the recipe has been working.
Yeah, it's got to be fun to go to the ballpark every night knowing that something good is going to be in the mix. Talking with Todd Rosiak, he's the Brewers beat writer for the Milwaukee Journal. So you talked about Jacob Misiorowski the other night. That was just an unbelievable performance with all the times he hit 100 plus on the gun. Did you guys realize in real time what was going on with that game and how hard he was throwing?
Yeah, so it's funny. I was telling somebody this the other day. How spoiled are we already as writers? Because when he takes the mound, the first thing that we do from the very first pitch is you're looking at the radar gun. We got that all right in front of us. When he made that start at Wrigley Field last week, his first inning he was sitting like 100, 101, and we're looking at each other like, oh, that's it today? Like we're disappointed because he's only throwing 101. When we saw that first at bat against J.J. Weatherholt, all 6 pitches, 103 plus, we're like, whoa. And he carried it over. The guy's a freak of nature, unbelievable what he's doing, and he's become literally must-watch TV. The only other time I can remember since covering the Brewers, I started in 2011, the only other time I can remember a player for the Brewers who was this locked in, well, actually twice. The player was this locked in, and you did not want to leave your seat to go grab a soft drink or go to the restroom or whatever. Ryan Braun in 2011 during his MVP run, Christian Yelich in the second half of 2018 during his MVP run, and now Jacob Misiorowski. You could probably throw Corbin Burns in there too in 2021 when he won the Cy Young, but this kid is unbelievable. I think it's only going to be a matter of time before he throws a no-hitter. I'm sure that's in the cards. It's just, again, must-see TV. He's amazing to watch.
We've talked about this Brewers team 3 years running, winning the division. And I also always like to ask people who follow the teams closely and everyone intimately, front office, players. With that success previously and then the success having this year, we're kind of piecing things together. Does it kind of reflect just the culture right now in this clubhouse with this organization that it's a culture of winning. It's a culture of success. It's a culture of we're going to be there in the mix, taking our best shots at the ring come October.
Yeah, 100%. In early on in their run, I don't think that was there. That's developed over time, right? Developed with continued sustained success. And they've been able to do that. And, the core of the group has been in place for these 3 years. And obviously there's been some moving pieces, some moving parts, but the new parts that come in learn very quickly. This is how the team is run. This is how things are done. And I mean, who wouldn't want to jump aboard a moving train like this, right? Coming from another organization, aside maybe if you were playing for the Dodgers or something like that. I mean, it's got to be a lot of fun. And, guys, they hit the ground running, and it's truly a team mentality. Pat Murphy preaches that. I think that's partly kind of his old college coach coming out in him. He coached Notre Dame, Arizona State famously before he got into the major leagues. Kind of that rah, let's go get them kind of guys thing. And the team buys in. And, you've got guys like Christian Yelich, Brandon Woodruff, the grizzled veterans who help set the tone. But the young guys are right in the mix. And William Contreras is another guy. Pat Murphy calls him our pit bull. Literally what he is. The guy's incredible at playing every day, insisting to catch every day. He's healthy this year and having a productive season. You've got, rising stars like Bryce Terang at second base, really outstanding player. Jackson Churio, he missed the first 5 weeks or so with a broken hand. He's kind of rounded back into form. You've got young guys like Abner Uribe, Aaron Ashby in the bullpen. It's amazing the wealth of talent that they've acquired. And on top of all that, they've got the number one farm system in baseball. They've got the number one overall prospect. They've got 6 guys on the top 100 list. Now, granted, not all those guys will pan out, but it just goes to show you that they've built this juggernaut that when they have to trade guys, like they'll have to trade William Contreras when he, year before free agency, probably have to trade Bryce Terang a year before free agency. We know this. This is how they operate. Then it's just like plug and play, bring in the next wave from the minor leagues and keep it rolling. That's how they do it.
Yeah, so it sounds like kind of Major League Baseball version of the Oklahoma City Thunder. You've got this wealth of talent kind of waiting in the wings. So when you have to make a move, you can just slide somebody in place.
Right.
Great luxury to have for any franchise, certainly in a market like Milwaukee. You mentioned Pat Murphy, and it's something we don't see very often. And when when he was hired, I remember thinking, wow, I like that move. Clearly he knows baseball. We don't see guys jump from the college ranks to the majors. The Giants are now trying it with a guy from Tennessee. Do you think if Pat Murphy can win a World Series title there with the Brewers, we'll see more of that? Because we do like to copy success. We see somebody do something else, and we like to just say, hey, let's try that. Do you think we may see more of that possibly?
I don't know. I guess anything's possible. I would say, so Murph's situation is a little bit different, in that he went from Arizona State. He managed for several years in the Padres organization in the minor leagues. He wound up managing at the major league level for part of 2015 as interim manager when Bud Black got fired. So he had a little bit of major league experience. And then when Craig Counsell brought him over, I don't know if you're familiar with the ties, but Murph was Counsell's college coach at Notre Dame way back when. So they were like this.
Yeah.
Counsell brings Murphy over to Milwaukee in 2016 as his bench coach. And, we knew Murph was a respected baseball guy. Counsell clearly respected him and admired him. But when Counsell unexpectedly moved on to the Cubs in 23, all the dominoes fell really quickly. And, from what I've been told, from everything I know, had things developed a little bit more slowly, and had the Cleveland Guardians not jumped on Stephen Vogt right away, I think Stephen Vogt would probably have been the manager of the Milwaukee Brewers. He played for the Brewers, obviously a super well-respected guy in baseball and within the Brewers organization. But Cleveland jumped in on that, and then, it's not like, Murph was, a consolation prize or a consolation pick, but because he was well-regarded in the organization, I just don't think that he fit the mold that everybody's looking for in a manager. Like when you're looking for young guys and energetic guys at the start of their careers, he's on the complete opposite end of that spectrum. But he knew the organization knew him. He wowed in all the interviews and everything. The Mets had interviewed Murph for the managerial spot several years previously. And when that hire was made, we were all kind of like, well, it's interesting because he doesn't fit the demographic necessarily, but the guys know him. He knows the guys, and you would think that this machine will just kind of keep on rolling, and that's exactly what happened. And looking back on it now, I don't think they could have made a better hire. It's been really remarkable what he's done. He's won back-to-back Manager of the Year awards. He's a character to deal with and to interact with on a daily basis. I'm sure you've seen interviews and clips and stuff, carrying pancakes around in the pocket of his jacket. And, he can be the salty old guy at times, but the motivator at other times, super sarcastic and cynical and witty and funny. He's like the 180-degree polar opposite of Craig Counsell. And it's been fun. It's been a lot of fun covering him and getting to know him.
Fun to have a player like that or a coach like that there, in your manager there in your midst, and against a long season, right? 162, find ways to kind of change things up a little bit. I've got about a minute left here in the segment. 2 months in, looking good so far. What is the one thing this team needs to do here in the back 2/3 of the season to finish this off and be there in October?
I think the number one is pretty easy is to get fully healthy if possible, get Brandon Woodruff back and pitching well. And the other thing to me is I would like to see another bat in the lineup, preferably a power bat. It's been proven to win in the postseason, you need guys that are home run threats. They got totally exposed against the Dodgers last year, couldn't put up any offense. You needed some quick strike threat. So I think at the trade deadline, maybe they'll pull from some of their prospect capital. If somebody's out there and available that kind of fits that need, they can fit in there. I think now's the perfect time to pull the trigger because they're in position to win an unprecedented 4th straight Central title, get back to the playoffs again. And as we know, all you need to do is get in and anything can happen. So that would be my take.
Absolutely. No, great take. Well said. And man, great to talk with you. Hopefully, I know that, baseball season is just crazy, but hopefully we can find a slot in your schedule somewhere here this summer to talk again and get an update on how things are going up there.
Absolutely. Love to do it anytime. Reach out, please.
All right. We certainly will. Todd, thanks so much, man. Have a great day.
Thank you.
All right. Todd Rosiak joining us, Brewers beat writer for the Milwaukee Journal. Sitting right now, sitting pretty atop the NL Central. And again, trying to stay on top of a division that is incredibly competitive. Okay, we continue here. The Sports IQ with Larry Smith continues after this.
I get a lot of calls from people across the country who are suffering from the affliction of IRS tax debt, and that's because I have a remedy. Hi, I'm the tax doctor, and if you're having any of these tax issues, call me right now. My team specializes in helping people over the age of 50 solve their tax problems, and the bigger your tax problem is, the more money you can save. If you owe the IRS money, or you're about to owe the IRS money, or even if you need to file years of unfiled returns, call us right now. Our friendly, highly trained representatives are waiting right now to take your call. Over the years, we've helped thousands of people just like you stop the tax liens, wage garnishments, and harassing phone calls. You don't need to send the IRS a big fat check. We can negotiate a lower amount. That's what we guarantee for you. So call us right now. Call 833-789-3068.
Do you want to save money on your next flight? Then pick up the phone and call. That's right, call. Because the best prices on airline tickets are not online. They're with SmartFares. See, SmartFares has special deals with the airlines. When they have unsold seats, they use SmartFares to fill them. So you get airline tickets at ridiculously low prices. They have access to great prices and discounts with over 500 different airlines, plus 300,000 hotels and rental car companies. Their prices are too low to publish online. The only way to learn more is make a free call. With the extra money you'll save, you can book another trip or treat yourself to dinner or shopping. So stop searching all of those travel sites to find the lowest price on your next trip. Let one of our SmartFares expert travel agents find the best prices for you. Call SmartFares today and get the best price on your next trip.
Welcome back here to the show. Don't look now, but those November patsy and bye games the SEC has been playing for the better part of the past 2 decades, bye-bye, about to become a thing of the past. The conference's athletic directors voting on Tuesday at their spring meetings. By the way, have you seen the pictures from down there? Oh, to be an SEC school exec and go down there. How do you get any work done down there on the beach? I just want to go out there and hang out and sit and watch the waves. But they voted to play all conference football games on that second to last week of the regular season beginning next year in 2027. Obviously, it's too soon to do it this year. Everything's already set. This ends a traditional warm-up weekend when most SEC programs would play those inferior FCS or lower-tiered FBS opponents before their typical rivalry games on the final week of the season. As SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey joked, that's the end of Cupcake Weekend. We never got that one sponsored, though. Okay. After years of dead ends, by the way, meanwhile, in other college football news, a bipartisan bill on college sports from Senators Ted Cruz, a Republican from Texas, and ranking member Marla Cantwell, the Democrat from Washington, is expected to be introduced within days. This according to sources familiar with the legislation, telling CBS Sports Tuesday night. Language for the bill is being finalized and is now moving through the standard pre-introduction process. The bill's expected to carry the prize that college sports leaders have chased for the better part of a decade, a limited antitrust exemption regarding player eligibility and transfer rules, the legal shield that would let the industry write its own rules and enforce them without being challenged in the court system by players seeking additional years on the playing fields and courts. What else is in the bill has largely remained a mystery, frustrating university leaders who previously backed the since withdrawn SCORE Act, which also promised antitrust protection. As with any bipartisan bill, compromises were a part of the process in drafting the Cantwell-Cruz bill, and what did and didn't make it into the upcoming legislation, certainly it's paramount to the power players. What is known among those leaders is that this bill will address player movement in the transfer portal and eligibility windows, legally limiting player movement to as few as one transfer per career. Remember, we did that once before, right? If you transfer to sit out a year, we talked about the Jeff George thing back in the 80s, where in the Big Ten, if you transferred within the conference, you had to sit out 2 years. And so literally George was a walk-on for his 2 years at Illinois, in which he became the number 1 overall pick in the draft because he came from Purdue and only wanted to sit out 1 year. He was not on scholarship as a result. Little tidbit for you, how far we've changed. The NCAA is close to adopting an age-based eligibility model as well that would allow players to compete in up to 5 seasons. So again, watch this. Now that gets us into our next headline. The NCAA has denied Texas Tech quarterback Brendan Sorsby's request to be reinstated as being eligible for the upcoming 2026 college football season, even as the school president publicly backed Sorsby's desire to play for the Red Raiders this season and amid a, quote, complex situation. The NCAA decision, which is in line with precedent, would put Sorsby's lawsuit against the NCAA seeking an injunction for his eligibility for the 2026 season into further focus as his court date looms Monday in Lubbock County. Now, along with that case, the Texas Tech president also stated in a letter that the Texas Tech community that the school planned to appeal the NCAA's ruling. So the eligibility thing, look, again, we'll talk more about this in a few minutes here with the producer Tony, but the eligibility thing and the years, it was to a point where you went 4 years to get a degree, and then, we'll give you a year because, medical register, injury, whatever. It has now become crazy that we're talking 6, 7, some guys with injuries now even playing 9 seasons of college athletics. I get you want to hang around. I understand now the money is there for some of these guys. You're not going to make NFL millions, so get your money now in college while you can. I get it. But folks, at some point, we got to reel this in. Come on. Sports IQ continues after this. Producer Tony joining us right now. Tony, let's talk more about this college football, just the mess. As I mentioned right there, before going to break, that something has to give. Be it legislation in Washington, the NCAA. The thing is now, I think the NCAA, they've lost whatever teeth they had, and these are serious. We're bringing in high-powered lawyers to fight these things. I just don't know the NCAA today has the bite to put up any kind of real serious fight if they're challenged on any of their rules.
No, they really haven't. Look, let's face it, the NCAA right now is kind of like the Washington Generals. They're going to lose. Yeah. They're set up to lose. The Globetrotters are going to win the game. We know that going in. It's just a matter of by how much. Yeah. That's the NCAA at this point. They couldn't win a court case if their life depended on it. Yeah. They get knocked down at every turn over every issue. It started when they wouldn't make a deal about the rights issue with O'Bannon in that court case, and it's just been snowballing ever since. I couldn't tell you the last time the NCAA won a major court case on something. So if they can't get this antitrust legislation in, they're going to continue to lose cases, which means kids are going to continue to appeal. They're going to win, find whatever judge they need to find, and get going. Now, but problem I have is I'm trying to figure out how legally they can go back and put all this back in the box, because it's like you've opened Pandora's box. It's been open for a while now. Yeah. And so now you're going to tell these kids that they can't transfer on a whim, that they can't move yearly to different schools, that you're going to cut off their eligibility, their access to this funds. Isn't that what America's all about? Like trying to better yourself?
Yeah.
I mean, I get it, but we're so far down the road with NIL. Going back, I don't know if you can challenge. I don't think you can challenge bills in the courts, but I'm guessing that somebody at some point is going to claim that this is unconstitutional, what they've allowed the NCAA to do. If this bill passes, somebody at some point is going to say, you mean, I signed here with school X, and after a year, I know it's not going to work out, but I can move only once. And so I go to school Y. That doesn't work out. Now I'm stuck here for 3 years, even if I know it's not going to work out, when I could go somewhere else and play. I see a lot of court. The lawyers are lining up going, I'm ready. Just here we go. Filling their docket to get paid for the next 10 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing too. These lawyers, they're not working for free. I mean, these kids
Right.
are all put in, serious six figures or more in some cases. And it goes back to, and I agree with you. And look, I'm going to admit, I'm not the smartest guy in the room, and I'm not the best well-versed guy on this, right? But it seems to me that the only way you're going to corral this is to make them employees and actually sign them to binding contracts that say, if you come to school X, you're required to stay here for this number of years. And yeah, sure, education, yep, go to class, all that good stuff. I don't know how you enforce this without that. There are already stories out there, and I'm not going to repeat them because I don't have the authority to do this, where there were guys early on in NIL that didn't fulfill they took the money and didn't fulfill the requirements of that. And then they went and left school and they went on about whatever it is they're doing either here or abroad. And they left those people who put money in high and dry. How do you enforce that?
I can't imagine. I mean, how would you be able to enforce that? If you don't have a signed contract, or if these contracts are basically worthless, like I did a year. Look, it happened with Darian Mensah. Yeah. He signed a 2-year deal. His NIL deal was for 2 years with Duke. Should have covered last year that he played with Duke and then this coming season. He went, my lawyers are hearing that I can make twice as much down here in South Florida. So I'm busting that contract. And Duke went, wait, we have a contract. Yeah. And they wound up making a deal to let Darren out because the lawyers at Duke went, you don't have a leg to stand on. These contracts are not enforceable. Yeah. So why bother? Come to some sort of agreement with him. Let's get some sort of remuneration, either back from Darren or from school X that he's transferring to, in this case, Miami. And let's come to some agreement, because we go to a court of law and we're not going to win. We're absolutely not. Yeah. So why bother? And it's such a gray area, not only for players, but for schools and administrators. That's why you're seeing college football programs. They no longer have a head coach and 15 assistant coaches. There's a head coach, there's a GM, and that GM has hired 4 and 5 lawyers and some scouts and some other things. That part of the college athletic budget has gone berserk. Yeah. I mean, and again, how are you going to get it up? What are you going to do if you say there's no more transfer portal? You can come and do one. Are you going to fire all these people? Yeah. Because do you really need them anymore if the transfer portal is 1 or 2 guys? That's the best you can do. It's crazy. Yeah. And we've heard talk about even reducing the outside of your coordinators and your top assistants, reducing the pay of all the others down to under 100,000. Right now, if you're a coach of a major, say a football coach or even basketball coach of a major Power 4 program, you're making probably at least north of $200,000 a year. Yeah, in most cases, coordinators making $1 million. Some Ohio State making $3 million, right? I mean, some of these schools, there's a talk of outside of the top 2 or 3 assistants going down to these coaches making $75,000-$80,000 a year, because they're saying, look, we're going to take that extra money instead and put it toward paying the money from the house settlement, the $20.5 million you got to give to athletes, or again, going into some NIL collective. And that's always a gray area, because now so many schools have taken over the local NIL program and kind of folded it into their athletic department. So whatever dollars were there before that you didn't know about, now it's even harder to find out exactly who is getting what. They may say player X is getting $3 million, but there's really very little way to qualify and actually verify that that's really the case. Absolutely. And none of that is really going to change, I don't think, with this bill that they're proposing. I mean, do we need something like that? Absolutely. And it's a bipartisan bill, so that's a good thing. Can they find common ground to help out college athletics? Does college athletics need the help? Yeah, absolutely. Look, we've heard the numbers Larry. I was reading a story today online. Kurt Signetti claimed last year, we didn't spend a ton of money. We had kids that wanted to be here. We coached them up. We did this, that. Yes, we spent some NIL money, but it's nowhere near what people think. The figure being thrown around, not for that team, but for the team in 2026 that is trying to repeat as national champion, is north of $30 million. for the football team at Indiana.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine, you know what Ohio State is spending, you know what Michigan's spending. You can imagine what Georgia and Alabama are spending. I mean, at some point, that has to be brought under control. I don't see how any of those models are survivable in the long term, right? If you're spending $30 million for football and $20 million for basketball and another $10 million for women's basketball, that's $16 million. I know you're getting a lot of rights fees, but at some point the well's going to run dry, and you're not going to be able to keep up with any of that.
Yeah. And how about, I just saw a story over the weekend where some ACC schools, and they're trying to find ways to generate more revenue. North Carolina hosting the Savannah Bananas and the football stadium, and they're saying, it generated, I don't know, 8 figures of revenue for that weekend when they were in town. But they said, but even us, our takeaway was we got $1 million out of that game. NC State, there's another story saying they carried a deficit into this year of more than $18 million, again, because of that $20.5 million. And so now it's like, how do you find ways to increase your revenue without passing it on to to those players or to the fans who are already spending their money and have already raised ticket prices? North Carolina's agreement with in the same story with Nike, $5 million a year. They're about to renegotiate that coming up here this fall. And so, there were SEC schools. Arkansas had Tyson Foods patches on their jerseys for all 19 sports. LSU made a deal. I mean, it's one of these things that now it has to happen. These things have to happen if these athletic, and we're not talking about smaller schools, mid-major schools. We're talking SEC. We've talked about, and I'm not sure we got into this, but the report came out over the weekend, USA Today. Every SEC school got a payout of $70 million. Every Big Ten school got a payout of $76 million. And how rich is the Big Ten right now? Why do teams still want to get a part of this? The 2 last teams to join the Big Ten, remember it was USC and UCLA and all this conversation in other schools. Oregon and Washington took smaller payouts in order to leave the Pac-12, where they were making $25 million a year. Their payouts were between $46 and $48 million in this past year. The top payout outside of Clemson, Florida State worked out a special deal in the ACC is around $42 million. So even the partial shares for 2 schools in the Big Ten was more than what ACC schools got and more than what every Big 12 school got. And so that's why we're creating this, the Big Two and everybody else. But even those programs in the SEC needing to find ways to create more revenue.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about revenue generation. And look, Larry, you and I have had the luck of being able to sit in press boxes when we go to college football games. We've covered the sport. Didn't cost us anything to get in. Didn't cost us anything for hotel because we're working for a company dime. Now, I'm trying to take my grandson to a game up in Notre Dame and trying to figure out the cost of 3 tickets, me, his mom, and him, and the airline fare and the hotel. You're looking about going to a college football game costing anywhere from around $2,000 to $4,000.
And that's regular season. That's
regular season. That's not even the playoff. I'm not even talking about a playoff game.
Yeah. Playoffs.
Playoffs. What are you kidding me? Playoffs. When Notre Dame appeared in the championship game against Ohio State, right up the road, 3.5 hours from where I am, if I wanted to take my grandson and get 2 tickets to that game, was going to cost north of $6,000.
Wow.
Love Notre Dame. Love my grandson. Not spending $6,000, and that's just for the tickets. Now I got to find some place to stay, unless we both want to sleep in my car, which isn't happening in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And a hotel and food and the souvenirs. No, absolutely not. I don't understand where people come up with the money to go to these events. As bad as you want to and as much fun as they are, I just don't see it being sustainable. I've known friends that, when Georgia won their back-to-back national championships, they went to the games, spent almost $5,000 to $8,000 each time.
Yeah.
Bless your heart if you have that money.
Yeah. I know a Notre Dame fan when they made the run that you're talking about, former Notre Dame athlete who had a successful career outside of athletics, did have the means to go to the final two games. And I didn't even try to even count up how many $1,000 he spent, he and his buddies, to go to those. God bless him that he had. But I'm with you. Me, I couldn't begin to part with that kind of money for a game.
Right. Not for a game that I can watch on TV. Look, I still have a TV. I still have my home. I've got my own snacks. Yep. I don't need the souvenir. Would it be a nice experience? Would I love to do it and take him? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Not for something that basically could pay my mortgage for 8 months.
Exactly.
Or 9 months. No, not happening.
It's not happening. Yeah, I'm with you there. The conversation continues. By the way, one other little tidbit that I did see in that report, NC State, to try to make money and try to cut into that $18 million deficit, hosting 2 concerts in July, one of them Guns N' Roses. So if you're a big fan of Axl Rose and Slash, get your butt down to Raleigh in July, and you can see him live and in concert. There you go. Got to find a way to make those ducks. Okay, we'll continue the conversation up next after a quick timeout.
Are you tired of your website making your business look bad? Is your current web developer dropping the ball? Let's face it, if your website isn't making you money, it's broken. Let Neon Rain create a website that turns your visitors into customers. Neon Rain has worked with hundreds of businesses across North America, building custom websites and applications with modern designs that are easy to update and work well on mobile devices. They can do it for you too. What sets Neon Rain apart? They actually deliver on their promises. Call today for a free consultation. 303-957-3092. That's Neon Rain at 303-957-3092. Or visit them at neonrain.com.
Are you paying too much for term life insurance? There's a tremendous price war among the major term life companies. Rates have dropped dramatically in the past 2 years. For example, a man age 45 non-tobacco user, $1 million of coverage is only $75 per month, level for the next 10 years. Or a man age 50 non-tobacco user can buy $500,000 of coverage for a monthly premium of only $110, guaranteed not to change for the next 20 years. That's right, level rates for 20 years. And if you're a smoker, we have great rates for you as well. At the Term Lifeline, we specialize in policies of $500,000 and above. So if you're looking for new or replacement term life insurance, call right now for a free quote.
Rates and availability may vary by state. Sample rate quotes are based on preferred non-tobacco underwriting exam required to qualify.
Call 855-826-7932. 855-826-7932. That's 855-826-7932.
We continue here. Larry Smith here, producer Tony. And let's talk about the New York Knicks, by the way. Saw some reporting. What a great investment. The chairman of the team, James Dolan, known for making bad decisions, right? But a good one he made was spending $30 million to get rid of Tom Thibodeau. And as a result, they brought in Mike Brown. They wanted something different. That's paid off very quickly because here they are, first NBA Finals since 1999.
Yeah, I mean, look, if that costs you $30 million with what you're going to make by hosting some NBA final games, okay, that works for me. Look, if you can take X and double it, I don't care what business you're in. That's a good business model. That business model works every time. And that's where the Knicks are looking at right now. Yeah. And, you know, they've been a great story. This is just going to be one of those captivating stories in the NBA Finals. People are going to want to go. People in New York are so hungry for finals. That's a basketball city for all, you know, yes, the Yankees own it for baseball. Yes, they're interested in the Rangers and the Devils for hockey. But bottom line is they love basketball in the Garden. It's a basketball town. Getting to the finals has been what they're after. And they haven't been since 1999. So make the most of it while you're there. And New Yorkers enjoy every second of it.
Yep, and we're already seeing where ticket prices for those games in New York for the NBA Finals already in the thousands now. That thing's not going to tip off for another week, meanwhile, and it's going to tip off first 2 games in Oklahoma City or San Antonio. Thunder right now, they get the win tomorrow night. They're going to be in for the second year in a row. The Spurs, Victor Wembanyama just did not look like himself in Game 5.
No, and look, I know it all plays out differently. Each game is its own separate entity. But if you're Victor Wembanyama, you cannot disappear for a game like he disappeared in that one. Yeah. I know Isaiah Hartenstein is leaning on you. I know some of the stuff is not above board, but you've got to find a better. I read a story that talked about he's so good when he gets in the paint, but he allows players to take him out of the paint. When they do pick and roll sometimes, instead of rolling to the basket, he'll flash out to try to create space for other people. I guess the thought is being a good teammate, try to open up a better shot. But if you're 7'4" and you can go over anybody, get as close as you can and get that shot. And you can see Hartenstein pushing on him. You can see him leaning on him. And sometimes Wemby's just tossing it up there to get his own rebound off the backboard to put it in. Well, you can't make a living doing that.
Yeah.
You can't. I think he's got to find a way in the offseason to put on about 15 pounds of muscle or 20, still maintain everything else that he does really well, and get better at getting down low and getting in the paint and being that force in the paint. If you can't do that, look, LeBron had to figure out early on in his career how to become more of a force in the paint. And he did. He went and talked to Akeem one off season and spent time down there and worked with him on the footwork, on the moves, and how to get low, play with your back to the basket. And it wound up helping him all throughout his career. Wemby's got to do the same thing if he wants to truly reach superstardom.
Yeah, I totally agree. That series continues right now. Spurs must win 2, Game 6, and then Game 7 on the road this weekend on Saturday if they have a shot. Otherwise, it's going to be the Thunder and the Knicks in the finals beginning next week. I believe it begins on June 3rd. That's so Wednesday night. Yeah. And then again, it'll be in Oklahoma City, Games 1 and 2. Speaking of, meanwhile, Vegas Golden Knights and John Tortorella, when the Golden Knights made the change, what was in March, right? Or early March, I think it was, or
early mid-March.
Yeah, I mean, it was, it wasn't very long ago. They said, well, bring him in. It was like, boy, what a, season's kind of over, right? Why do this now? Well, he is talking about turn this thing around, not only in the Stanley Cup Finals, but they just swept the top-seeded Avalanche that's looked outstanding through the entire season, and they just put them away. No questions asked.
Yeah, it's a great redemption story going on. Look, Tortorella won the Cup with Tampa back, we talked about earlier in the show. Mm-hmm. After that, he kind of bounced around to a few teams. He's been with the Rangers. I think he was with either the Columbus Blue Jackets, maybe somewhere else. And now it didn't look like he was ever going to coach again after his last job. And he got another chance here in Vegas to come coach the Knights. And man, talk about taking advantage of it. He's doing a great job. Look, 19-4-1 is no joke since he became the head coach. He's doing something special out there, and they got a lot of momentum now headed into this final. And give credit to Carter Hart. Spent 2 years suspended for a sexual assault issue that he wound up being found not guilty of. It was exonerated in the courts, but the league still punished him for a little bit. But he has come back and he's playing great. The potential he had in Philly, he is seen now in Vegas. The Knights aren't there without Carter Hart.
Yeah, and it's been a great story in the finals yet again. And boy, what a great atmosphere out there at the T-Mobile Arena down there, right there on the Strip. Hey, we are out of time. We appreciate our guest, Todd Rosiak, stopping by, talking about the Brewers. Appreciate you as well. Hey, let's make this a great Wednesday. We'll do it again tomorrow here on the Sports IQ.
Thanks for listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith, Monday through Friday. Continue the conversation at Sports IQ LS. We'll see you next time.
Those old golf clubs sitting in your garage right now, there's a good chance they're worth real money. That driver you replaced, those irons you upgraded, even that putter collecting dust. Golf Roots lets you trade them in for cash or credit toward your next set. And right now, Sports IQ listeners get exclusive offers. Take $20 off any order over $100 with code SIQSALE, or get a 15% bonus on your trade-in value with code SIQ trade-in. That means the clubs in your garage could be worth even more. Golf Roots is on a mission to make golf more accessible, offering high-quality, pre-owned name brand clubs for every skill level. And if you're just starting out, the Just the Roots starter set is one of the most affordable ways to
begin with full trade-in credit when you're ready to upgrade. So don't let your old gear sit there losing value. Go to golfroutes.com and see how you can start or upgrade your golf journey today. Use code SIQ SALE for $20 off or SIQ trade-in for 15% extra when you trade in your old clubs. That's golfroutes.com. Golf Routes. Upgrade smarter.